Live from KSAT12, the Night Beat starts right now.
For every parent, for every citizen in this country, we have to make it clear to every elected official in this country, it's time to act.
Chaos as gunfire rings out at an elementary school in Uvalde. People taken to the hospital. More than a dozen children killed. Some parents still searching for answers tonight.
I keep asking questions of what's going on, and nobody's telling me anything. Nobody's telling me anything.
The gunman now dead as investigators work to uncover a motive.
It is being reported that the subject shot his grandmother right before he went into the school.
Some calling for a change to gun laws.
Now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something?
We look at the impact now being left on many and the ways you can help our neighbors in South Texas. Some who are still fighting for their lives.
I don't know what to say. It's sad. It's sad.
It is sad. The death toll in the Uvalde school massacre continues to change. Right now it stands at 19 kids, 2 adults.
And one of those is Eva Mireles, a 4th grade teacher at Robb Elementary. Her aunt saying that she was a teacher with Uvalde CISD for 17 years. The shooting happening in Uvalde, southwest of San Antonio, just before noon today. A gunman opened fire at Robb Elementary. That shooter is also dead tonight. As families are waiting at the Civic Center there in Uvalde for information, some victims were taken to University Hospital here in San Antonio.
Our Garrett Berger begins our team coverage tonight at Robb Elementary with new information on the moments before this shooting and the shooter's apparent interaction with law enforcement. Garrett joins us live tonight. Garrett.
Well, Steve, Robb Elementary is lit up tonight, surrounded by law enforcement, a crime scene. No longer a school. Now the air still heavy with the emotion of the tragedy that unfolded just a few hours ago. We're not even 12 hours away at this point. Texas Rangers are leading the investigation, and we talked with DPS about how this all went down. Now DPS lieutenant says the shooter shot his grandmother at a domestic disturbance. The shooter crashing his car near the school. And DPS saying he then exchanged fire with a Uvalde ISD police officer first outside. Then, armed with a long rifle, clad in body armor, he went into the school, shooting everyone in sight. Other law enforcement arrived, and we know of at least 2 wounded officers. A DPS lieutenant said a tactical team exchanged fire with the shooter and hit him. A neighbor told us at one point she saw what looked like an adult man being carried out the front.
Brought him to the front of the school and on a stretcher, and they tried to put him in one of the police officers' cars, and they weren't able to, so then they tried to put him in the back of a fire department truck that has a lift on the back of it. So they weren't able to put him there either, because all of a sudden here comes an ambulance, and they throw him in the ambulance, and they rush him out of here.
Well, the neighbor thought that might have been the shooter. DPS lieutenant says it could have been an injured law enforcement officer. Adding credence to that, as another DPS spokesman said, the shooter was killed inside of the school. Now, DPS said that the shooter's grandmother had been airlifted to University Hospital. We just received word that she has now been added to the list of deceased. Now, shortly before live in Uvalde, I'm Garrett Berger, KSAT12 News.
Thank you, Garrett. 4 patients were brought to San Antonio. They're being treated at University Hospital. A 9-year-old is now being treated here. Officials say a 10-year-old girl and a 66-year-old woman are in critical condition. We're told that 9-year-old is in fair condition. Another 10-year-old girl was also taken to University Hospital. She's listed in good condition tonight. Now, we haven't been given an exact number of those injured in this shooting. Some were actually taken to Memorial Hospital in Uvalde.
And that is where our Stefania Jimenez joins us live tonight. So, Stefania, you've been there for several hours now. What are you learning?
You know, first I'm just going to start with describing what it's like out here right now. It is eerily quiet outside of Uvalde Memorial Hospital. This is where most of the victims were taken to be treated for the injuries, including some of the deceased. And, you know, we got here 2 hours ago, as you just said, and right across the street from where we're standing right now. I just want my photographer to show you what the lay of the land here is like. There are some benches there that you see. When we got here, there were 7 people sitting down on those benches. 3 of them came up to me and said that they were family members of one of the children, one of the 19 children who was shot and killed at Robb Elementary School today. 2 of those people that we spoke with were grandparents, and you can just tell how hurt they were. They're just trying to make sense of this. They just seemed numb. They're trying to kind of piece together what happened. But they did tell us that their grandson was a 10-year-old boy in the 4th grade, and the reason that they were sitting outside is because they were trying to give their daughter, who's the mother of that boy, some space. They told us that she was understandably heartbroken tonight. Now, we also spoke with another man here at the scene. He's a pastor. He told us he's the pastor of that family that we just told you about. And being that he's a man of the cloth, we had to ask him, what is his message for comforting the families of victims tonight? Here's what he told us.
We offer hope. There's been many of us that have lost loved ones as well as children. And so we come to offer hope beyond that, but also at the time to really let them know how much we care and that we love them, to be our full support for them in every way.
Really the way that this community here is handling things. What we're seeing tonight is this community, as well as the surrounding communities here, really pulling together. You know, we've been out here since this afternoon, and we have seen police officers from different departments going up to each other, hugging each other, people walking along the street, hugging each other, just giving themselves a little bit of comfort, because that's what you need to get through moments like this. And speaking of that, we know that there was a small vigil that was held here tonight, and there is also going to be another larger community vigil that is going to take place tomorrow. But at this moment, we still don't know how many people are being treated here at Uvalde Memorial Hospital tonight. That is information that we're hoping to get for you in the next few hours. For now, we're live here outside of Uvalde Memorial Hospital. Stefania Jimenez.
All right, thank you, Stefania. We lost your audio there at the end, but thank you for that report. Now, San Antonio police lending their resources in the intense moments leading up to the capture, or the attempted capture, of the school shooter.
SAPD did send over its Eagle helicopter and bomb squad to help out Uvalde police today, along with local crime scene investigators. They're working closely with the Texas Rangers here to turn over anything to help us uncover why this tragedy happened.
Just like most of us who have children, the first thing we do when we go home is we hug our children. I did that tonight. And we just have to remember that there's a whole community of people over there that are trying to do that, and many cannot. And we have to give folks the grace and understanding to know where they are in the mourning process.
Is San Antonio certainly trying to wrap its arms around Uvalde and all the people down there that are hurting? Mayor Nirenberg asking San Antonio residents to fly their flags at half-staff to honor the victims and the families affected by this mass shooting. And more on how San Antonio has turned out in a big way coming up a little bit later in the show. Our coverage of the massacre at Robb Elementary now continues, though. And the night team's Lee Waldman is at the Civic Center there in Uvalde. It has become an area that really has been a makeshift meeting place, a place for people to mourn together and to simply to be together in the hours since this happened. And Lee, we're actually learning another gut-wrenching detail of all of this. We understand that parents there are being asked to give DNA to help in what process?
The DNA that's being collected by these families who were occupying this lawn behind me, it's being used for the identification process, which is just another detail that just takes your breath away with this whole situation here. This Civic Center, we've been here since just after 2 o'clock this afternoon, and it has transformed during that time in the 8 hours that we have been here. At first, it was a reunification center, families heading here to pick up their children. It was then turned into a notification center. So many of these families that were sitting here before were desperately waiting for any information that they could get on their children. They'd say they didn't know where their children were. And unfortunately, just before we came on, you could hear screams and crying inside of the Civic Center all the way out here nearly on the street. Unfortunately, it seems like some families are getting that news they didn't want to receive this evening. This has been happening throughout the on to one another, carrying them out to their car as they cried, as they talked on the phone, as they held on to others. I spoke with two fathers this evening, and both had a very similar story for us. They're fathers of 10-year-old girls. One of their daughters is named Annabelle, the other is Marie. Neither had any information about where their daughters were or even if they were okay. They say that has been the worst part of all of this.
These parents are not here and they have their kid and their kid got out of school. No, if my kid was with me, I'd be at home right now. I'm here because my daughter was involved in the incident and something happened. We don't know her status.
I'm always sick. I'm always sick to my stomach. And you know what? I don't want to know nothing bad. You know what? Bad, it should be something bad for me, not my girl.
And obviously, we're giving those two fathers their space tonight. We didn't want to try and talk to them again, but we did see one of those fathers go into this center shortly after they came out holding their loved ones and they were crying. And that just seems to be the repeated story of what's happening here. As families go inside, they give that DNA sample, and then a lot of them are just getting the worst news you could ever imagine. It is so eerily quiet except for the sounds of other reporters, other vehicles here, and occasionally the sounds of screaming, crying moms and dads who desperately want their children back. Live in Uvalde, Lee Waldman, KSAT12 News.
Lee, when you hear that father say, "Not my girl," that hits you. Thank you, Lee. We now know the identity of one of the 19 children killed at Robb Elementary. We're going to focus on the victims, the lives lost here, more than that gunman who was a coward in all of this. ABC News confirms that 10-year-old Xavier Lopez was a fourth grader at the school who was killed. A family member telling ABC News tonight that his mother was there for an award ceremony earlier in the day. 10-year-old Xavier Lopez lost today in the shooting in Uvalde. We continue to follow this developing story online as well. Our coverage does not end here. Coming up, we're going to take a look at the impact this shooting is having and how one resource is helping take care of a community's mental health. We're also going to take a look at some of the vigils happening tonight. We're also going to hear from the president, who spoke to the nation tonight about what happened in Uvalde. But first,
let's take a look outside with live cam right now. We are keeping an eye on the weather this evening. San Antonio expecting rain overnight. Let's get right to meteorologist Sarah Spivey with the latest. We've got some storms out there to talk about, Sarah.
That's right, Myra. You know, it's quiet right now in San Antonio, but we are under a severe thunderstorm watch until 3 a.m. Storms are going to move through that could produce damaging wind gusts and even some hail. You can see those storms right now across the hill country.